Hello and welcome to another exciting Blender tutorial. Today we're making this really cool dynamic sand effect as well as this sci-fi town based on Mos Eisley. Let's get started. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit A to select all and X to delete. And we're going to create a sand base that's going to sort of dynamically create these little mounds of sand based on where our buildings are in this shot. So I'm going to go Shift A, Mesh Plane, scale it up. And I'm going to bring up my view here and switch over to geometry nodes. I'm going to click new to create a new geometry node system. I'll call this sand pile. And what we're going to do is come right here. And I want to create a distribute points on faces node. I'll just drop it here. Crank the density up to like 500 for now. That should be good. And then I'm going to come over here and we are going to just create some temporary geometry that's going to be a stand-in for our buildings. So I'm going to go Shift A, Mesh, Cube, and I'll just grab this up. And I'll grab Y and Shift E, Y, and just have 2 so we can see if it's working. And we're going to take this plane, we're going to come back here. And what I want to do is I'm going to detect whether or not the points that we generated are close to any of these vertexes on these guys. And if they are, the closer they are to them, the more I want them to be raised. Okay, so how would you do that? Well, we want to change the position of the points. So we're going to use the set position node. We know that. So I'll drop that here. Next thing we do is figure out by what to offset them from their current location. So we're going to use the offset input to offset them. Now, what we can do if we offset them all together, that's just going to be global. So we need to scale that somehow based on this proximity. So we're going to use the geometry proximity node. And I want to look at the proximity of we'll stick with faces. See how that goes. We might want to do points. I'm not sure. Stick with faces. And I need to have a target. So let's drag in one of these guys. Let's just grab both of these dudes. And I'll just grab them and bring them in individually like this. And I'm going to create a join string. We're going to create a join geometry node. Drop this here. We're going to plug both of these in just like that. So now these are one piece of geometry. And then I'll plug this in as the target. Now I want to say, all right, how far are these points from this? So this distance is the number that matters. Now what I'm going to do is come over here and I'm going to create some math. We're going to go for a vector math node, drop it here, and I want to take this distance value and plug it in right to here. And then I'm going to set this to multiply, and then I'll plug this into the offset. Now, if I drag this up, you'll see that as that number increases, these guys are raising up higher and higher. And if I grab one of these and move it around, you can see there is a slight effect. It's not quite right. It's still a bit weird. So let's get that figured out. First thing we need to do is come over here to the object info for both these guys, and we need to set them to relative. So you remember at the beginning we scaled up the plane. So that was screwing up the calculation. So if you set these to relative, it doesn't matter how big it is. It's going to actually look at physically where these things are in the scene compared to the object with the geometry nodes modifier on it. All right, so why does this work? Let's have a look at this. Before we go too much further, I'm going to split the view here and I'm going to switch this from geometry nodes to the spreadsheet viewer. And I'm going to take a look at the points, okay? What you can see is that this distance value, if I capture this attribute and stick it here, so let's go. So we're going to use let's use the store named attribute information. So let's grab the distance and plug it into the value. And we're storing this on the points, which is fine. Let's come to the point list and you'll see if we scroll over, let's give this a name. We'll call this props for proximity. And you can see we get a number here for each point. That's what this list is. These are all the points. And each one has a different number associated with it. And those numbers change when we move these guys around. If I just pin this so it doesn't go away. So I grab that. You can see that proximity is changing. So I have a value between 0 and 1, right? For however close these guys get. So I can use that value as a scale. So I can multiply it by this vector here, which we want to offset in either X, Y, or Z. I just want to offset in the Z direction. So that's why I'm using this vector math node so I can have a vector. And I'm not worried about the first two vectors. We're just going to leave those the same. It's just the Z position. And so I'm basically increasing this number. And the higher this number is basically it's then scaled by this, because this value, this proximity value, this 0.49 is multiplied by negative 0.96. So it makes it much smaller, which means this offset will be much smaller for an object that's further away. Whereas the closer it gets, the higher, the lower this number will get, the closer it gets. So the lower the number, the bigger the value. So that's why going negative is actually giving us the result we want. But it's too big, right? These hills are really huge, and that's not the right look. We can get rid of this store attribute. We don't need that. So what we want to do is shape it a little bit with a color ramp. So I'm going to grab a color ramp and drop it here. And I'm going to set this to B-spline, I think. I want to have a really gradual fall off. And I'll just bring this real close over here. You can see it's shaping it. Now I need to change this again. It's a bit too big now. And it's a little hard to see because these guys are so big, but we will get to making them smaller soon. But now you can see you're basically changing how far out does it raise up. And wherever these guys go, it's going to follow along. So this will be a nice little dynamic system we can use so that the sand piles up. We can also add a little bit to like the X or the Y, and that will create a bit of a like a windblown effect, if that makes sense. So we can put a little bit in both, maybe in the direction of the camera, just so we can see it. And it'll pile up more on one side, which could be really cool. All right, so let's convert this now from points to something that we can see and render. So we're going to use the points to volume. Oops. Points to volume shader. There we go. And I want to take the density and the radius down. So first I'll take that radius right down, something to like 0.01. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the volume to mesh node and drop it here. All right, so to increase the resolution of this, what we're going to do is come over here and increase the density. So we want more points to work with. So I might take this up to 1,000. And then I also want to come here and increase the voxel amount, which means it will have more and more voxels in play. So I'll just bring those up a bit. And we could take the radius maybe up to 0.02, I mean. I probably want them all a little bit smaller, so I'm going to go to 2,000. Just don't want this to get too dense. All right, so you might need different numbers depending on how large your plane is and what you've set up. So, but I've gone with a voxel amount of 170 and a density of 10 looks pretty good. Radius of 0.04. Might be able to bring that down a touch, but I'll keep it at 0.04. And then also I've got a threshold here of about 3 and adaptivity set to 1 on the volume to mesh. So there we go. So we've got this sand that piles up wherever we put geometry. So we scale these up, we're going to get bigger values. It's going to work out really well. Awesome. Let's build some buildings. I'm going to take one of these guys and I'll just delete this other one here. And what I'm going to do is kind of model them based on the sort of Mos Eisley design. We've got these different levels to the structure. So we're going to build one of these guys and then we'll use it in multiple different ways. So I'm going to come here and I'll go into edit mode. Go to 3 to go to face mode and grab Z just to bring it down a bit and S to scale. Just to scale that in. I might hide the plane just for now so we can work a bit lighter. Grab Z, bring it down just a touch. And maybe hiding it doesn't seem to cool it off. So let's just come over here and we can just remove these guys from the scene. We can just model without worrying about it. All right, back to edit mode. And at the top, I'm going to hit I to inset. We're just going to go in a little bit, and then E, Z, and S to scale, just like so. And then I want to go Shift S, cursor to selected. That'll pop the cursor right there on top of that face. And then Shift A, eevee sphere. Just scale that down. And then let's see, I'm going to grab each face along here. And I'm going to inset all these guys, just like that. I'm going to open up the inset face pop-up, and I'm going to go individual, just like that. I'm going to grab Z, bring them all down like that, just so there's a little bit of a gap. And I think what I'll do is go to face mode, select the bottom face and delete it. And then actually even better, I want to select the bottom and each of these guys. Next, delete those faces, back to edge mode. And if I box select all these edges and then scale Z 0, that'll flatten them out. All right. And then I'm going to select these faces. And I'm going to E and S. Actually, I'll just leave it like that. And then I'm going to go normal, and set this to individual origins, and then get our manipulator. And which one do I need to do? Set, there we go. And that will push them all out, just like that. Bring them down though, a little bit, so they're flat. Cool. And now what we need to do is set the little like ridge things. So I'm just going to roll my mouse wheel, do the same over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I want to do a loop cut with Control R right there. And then 3 to go to edge face selection mode. I will select all of these. And then I'll hit E. And then grab Y just to flatten it out a little bit. Very cool. Now I don't need any of these faces down at the bottom. So I think I could go, select similar. And I could select everything by normal. Yeah, there we go. Selected all those. Delete those faces. Also delete the bottom half of the sphere. So I can just come here and L to select linked, and then B to box select, Shift, select those, and then X to delete vertexes, and that will delete everything. Now we're going to right click and shade auto smooth, and then I'll come over here to the modifiers tab, click add modifier, and then I'm going to type in bevel, and I will bevel. I'll turn the amount down and turn the bevel subdivisions up to maybe 3. There's one of the buildings. Now we might want to make some variations on this. So first let's texture it and get all that working, and then we can create variations on the building itself. So I'm going to get rid of our spreadsheet viewer, switch this over to the shader editor, and clicking this guy, we're going to come over to materials and click new. Untick the pin there that I did earlier. All right, cool. I'm also going to change the origin so it's at the bottom. So I'll switch to X-ray mode. B to box select all those bottom vertices. Shift S, cursor to selected. I'll put the cursor right there. Leave edit mode. Object, set origin to 3D cursor. Okay, great. Now, it's like this sandstone, kind of brushed sandstone look. Found some cool photos here over on Pixels. I've got these two that I thought might be really useful for this. So I'm going to grab some of this stuff for the texture. So I'm going to download those guys, and then I'll bring them into here. So I'm going to go Shift A, Image, Texture, and then click Open. You can grab those too. They're free, open source. I'll put links in the description. And then I'm going to go into edit mode, select all, and I'm going to hit U and cube projection. It will project this thing as a cube. And I'm going to come over here and switch over to the UV editor. Let's have a look at how that turned out. What's that going to work? Let's follow active quads. Do smart UV project. I think that works. So smart UV project gives me a nicer layout. And I can kind of pick just a nondescript general area. Somewhere around here maybe. And then I can pick some more specific bits. It's like these faces. And see if I can't line it up, give it that. Nice to have that lighter color towards the top. See? I wonder if we could put some windows on these guys. Like, what if we went here, grab those two. Let's look at them like head on, like that. And you project from view. That way they're a bit more squared up. And then you actually come at this slight angle. Just matching up, trying to look at the general overall look. Do this side, grab these two. And I think I'll do the same kind of thing where I'll come to the angle here. And then you project from view, grab these guys, scale them up. It's kind of cool that there's slight variations between each side. I feel like that's going to be helpful visually. All right, one more time, you project for view, grab this, rotate it, scale it, and position it. Now, let's create some bump to this material. So we're going to come over here, we're going to create a bump and drop it here like this. And I'm going to take the color and plug it into the height. And I'm going to take the normal and plug it into the normal. I'm going to switch to rendered view. Click this drop down and untick scene world and just pick maybe that built-in HDRI, or actually that one's working pretty well for us. We'll go with that. And we're going to go up to our project render settings and turn on ambient occlusion, bloom, and screen space reflections. I'm going to make this bump height a little bit smaller. So I'm going to go down to 0.1. Looks a bit better. We want the roughness to be pretty high for this. All right, let's add some more detail to these colors. I'm going to add a gradient from the bottom to the top. So let's add a gradient texture. And I'll just plug the factor into the surface so we can just look at this. And then let's grab a texture coordinate node, plop this here, generate it into the vector, and then we're going to grab a mapping node, and we're going to drop this in here. And now I just want to rotate on, the Y, it looks like. So I'll go -90, X, yep, there we go. By lifting that up now, we can see we've got a gradient. Now I'm going to use a color ramp to shape it a bit. So color ramp. Now we can change the contrast to make it a bit sharper. We can also flip it like this. And I'll bring that up a bit. And then we're going to mix this in. So let's come over here to the surface and drop this here. And then we're going to grab a mix RGB, or mix color, sorry. Drop it into the base color. And let's pop this one into B. And we're going to set this to, let's try multiply. Now it's going to create a darkened area. And we probably want to introduce some noise, so it's not just a straight line. So let's plug this back into the surface so we can just look at it. So let's grab another mix color node, and we will drop it here. And then let's grab a noise node. We're going to introduce some noise, take the factor into B, and we're going to drop that to 0. And by introducing a little bit of noise, it's going to start to distort the way it gets placed. So you can see there, turn the detail up a bit and the roughness as well. I'll just hold down Shift. There we go. That looks good. There we go. That looks good. Now, we need to also detect sort of the shape of the geometry. So I'm going to grab an ambient occlusion node. And let's have a look at what this looks like. I'll plug the AO into the surface. And I'll grab another color ramp. Throw this here. And then let's increase that contrast. And what this does is this is going to show us if there's ever any geometry that's nearby. And it detects itself as well. I can turn this to inside to get the inside geometry, and that could be useful as well. It's a bit stronger with that, which is good. I think that's what we want. We want these edges. I might invert these, so I'm going to get the little drop down and flip the colors. And I'm going to add a bit more noise to this, I think. So I'm going to grab a new noise node. And the idea behind this is we're kind of weathering the edges, not these flat surfaces. So if we grab a mix color node, drop this here, and plug this into the factor, or plug this into the B slot, we can turn the factor up. Let's set this to multiply. And that should give us 1. I can turn my detail up to like 10 in the scale, and we're going to want another color ramp on this bit so we can increase the contrast. Go. Let's try linear light. And that's cool. It's going to break it up a little bit. I'm going to invert this if we're going to use linear light. All right. We're going to mix this in as well. So this is going to be a part of our, so let's plug the BSDF back up into the surface. Let's grab these guys. And then I'm going to go Shift D, plop that there, take this into the B slot. Now, as far as the dome is concerned, my plan here was just use the same material. So come here, create a new slot, click New, and just grab that material and then click the double paper icon to make a duplicate of it. So now it's a duplicate, and then just swap out the image here. So take the drop down and grab that, and then we want to assign this material just to the dome. So click that, click assign, and then leave that. There we go. Now this one might need to be brightened up a little bit for it to match, but actually I think it looks pretty good. All right, now let's turn our plane back on. And we're going to take our Mos Eisley cube, and we're going to use that in our geometry nodes setup. So let's go to geometry nodes, and let's grab the cube. There we go. And maybe grab zip at the plane and bring it down a bit. So now we've got the sand. We do need to make this look like sand. We're going to need to assign a material. So let's go over here to material, set material. We're going to set this as the last piece of the pipe, and this way we can select a material. We've got a stray material, this one here, O2. It's not assigned to anything, so we'll just use that. Grab it over here so we can work on it. And I'll switch over to the shader editor. We also should get some shadows going so we can see things. So I'm going to go Shift A, light, sunlight, and just turn this guy around. I'm going to go for a yellow and bring it down a bit too. And let's grab a noise texture and a color ramp. And we'll plug the factor into the factor. And then let's grab a bump node, and we'll grab the color into the height. And then we're going to grab the normal into the normal. All right, so we're going to need to make this noise like really fine detail. So let's crank it way up. Let's go, ridiculously high with this, maybe to 600. And we're going to turn the roughness up and the detail until this thing starts to just be out of control. Turn the distance down to 0.01, be a bit higher, 0.05. Increase the contrast. Good, pretty good. I'm going to turn the roughness up. That sheen. Give it a sheen. Tint it maybe like gold. What does that do? That helps. Looking a lot like sand. And let's go into the geometry nodes and see if we can increase the resolution. So we need to take the voxel amount up to 500 maybe. It's a bit better. There we go. It's looking a bit better. More like mounds of stuff. I'll try setting it to shade smooth. Set shade smooth. I'll drop this here. Turn that on. That'll help make it feel a little more rounded. Maybe what we can do is we have gaps like this, right? And then have another plane. It just sits underneath everything and then has the sand material. And then this kind of just raises up out of it. Then we might be able to make it work. Yeah, because I feel like the bump is so intense. Things are kind of, I don't know, it fades away a little bit, which is cool. So that actually works. Because then this plane can be really big. And we don't end up with like so much geometry we can't process it. I mean, this is still probably pretty dense. Yeah, that's pretty dense. Not too bad. This is more efficient. I like it. Very cool. All right. So let's set up a shot. I'm going to go Shift A and camera. Jump into my camera's view. And I'm going to come over to view and lock camera to view. And I'll just move back like this. Like that, maybe. Scale that plane up in the background. I'm going to unlock my camera to view and zoom it in a little bit. Bring this down. Get rid of that. And camera, come to my camera tab. And passport 2, I'm going to turn up to 0.999. All right, let's make a few of these guys. Let's call this building. Call this our sand, and we'll call this our ground. So it's all really clear. And building, gosh, you know, we could incorporate the geometry nodes things into the buildings. And then we don't have to duplicate both. and just sticks with it. Like, we take this geometry and then creates a plane. Like, we could just hard code this in, right? Make sand this bit. Why is that not working? Oh, it's because it's its own thing, right? And then on this, I could come over here, add modifier geometry nodes, and then just grab sand piles. And then join. That's awesome. So now the building, if we duplicate it, going to maintain the same sand effect. Oh yeah! Love that. There you go. I hope you enjoyed that tutorial and learned a lot. Now, if you want to check out the full uncut version of this tutorial, it goes on for literally an hour and 40 minutes. And I will go into tons more detail there. So a lot of that hits the editing remove floor, but I make these tutorials. But if you want access to it, you can join on Patreon at any tier or join on YouTube at the All Access Pass level and higher. All Access Pass level and higher. And yeah, if you enjoyed it, hit that like button. Let me know in the comments down below what kind of tutorials you'd like to see. And please subscribe to the channel and check out the Patreon to get all this. You can also get the project file. So if you join on Patreon at the second tier and up, this month you can get this project file. So every month you get the project files that cycle through for the tutorials. So anyways, hope you really enjoyed this and learned a lot. Thanks so much for joining me. I had a lot of fun making it. I'll catch you in the next tutorial. Until then, have a great week. See ya.